Fisher with Drums for Success. Talking to my buddy Rick Parma.
What up?
We rolling in the car on the way home from a gig. How did you get started playing sax?
Let's see. I always wanted to play when I was a kid. When I was like, 7, 8, 9, like kind of got interested in it through listening to a lot of different types of music and always hearing the saxophone. But I didn't get to start playing until I was 14, freshman year of high school in Chicago. And we couldn't afford lessons and stuff when I was a kid. So and I did karate and I did baseball and I did all these things. So it was like my parents were not going to be able to, buy an instrument and they didn't really rent them a whole lot back then. So it was like when I started high school and they said I could play, I said that would be great. So, but yeah, instant connection. I just never put it down practically. You know what I mean? So it was fun.
Yeah.
I'm driving. I can't look too much. Just kidding.
Okay. So how long you been playing?
Now let's see, 14 or 37, about 23 years.
Oh. And you have your own band and
yes. I've always kind of been in bands. When I got out of high school, I was playing in church throughout high school and that kind of stuff, and then a little bit after high school. Then I started playing in bands and stuff a lot. And by the time I was 30, I was already running my own band, and I was still playing with other bands in Chicago and stuff just for fun. And but it was like a second job. I was, working day job, that kind of thing, and trying to make music my career. But I always wanted to get out to California and, I didn't want to be that guy in just an old bar, playing the same songs, and really not doing anything with your music, even though that still is a living and it's still a life. I wanted more, I had that dream of playing in the big stages and playing with some of my favorite artists and stuff. And I don't think anything that anybody ever said to try to discourage me really actually discouraged me. I was like, too bad I'm doing this, So people always said, why didn't you go to New York? Because in the United States, the music scene's either New York or LA, pretty much. Chicago used to have a great music scene, and still does now, but more for like rock and stuff. But and Atlanta, of course, is doing good, but a lot more hip hop and jazz and that kind of stuff. So, but LA just, it's not. Shoot, I lived 30 years in the Midwest with the cold and the rain and the crazy bad weather, so I thought I'm gonna move to LA. And I never really wanted to move to New York. There was nothing no call for me for moving to New York. Like never really cared for that idea, but the idea of moving to California was kind of nice. And when I moved here, it quickly became, and I told myself, the first year that I moved here, I'm not going to get any other side work. I'm just going to try to do music and stay afloat. And now, for most musicians, that means renting a room or sleeping on somebody's couch, or you know what I mean, before I'm able to work my way up to buying my own apartment or renting or that kind of thing. So doing gigs was tough. It's just as a saxophone player, especially when nobody knows you and you don't really have a band yet, you don't have a foundation you don't have any friends yet. You're just trying to figure out where you're going. So I started singing. I started singing like everything I could think of. Started downloading backing tracks from like iTunes and on the internet and stuff, and I just started learning new songs, and it took me a good, I would say, almost 2.5 years to where I actually liked my own voice. In the beginning, it was difficult. I was embarrassed. It was hard to sing because I was still learning. I was like a very beginner singer, you know what I mean? And but doing it over and over and doing songs that I liked and songs that I knew, it was kind of nice when you mimic when you mimic an artist that you're trying to perform. You learn so much faster. You just learn really well. You learn to hit the notes that they hit and how they hit them and why they hit them. And as a vocalist, if you're in the beginning, if you're straining and stuff, you start to wonder, why am I straining? Well, and that's what the internet's for. I found all kinds of videos and stuff and how to do vocal warm-ups and training and some of the keys to singing, and You know, I was always straining for high notes, and the first thing that they always tell you is, if you're straining, you're already going the wrong direction. You know, you should be relaxed. You shouldn't have any pressure at all when you sing. And so that was my first major thing that I had to learn. But doing music full time was always what I wanted to do, and now that's all I do. I didn't get chased away from the LA being expensive, and I didn't get. I said the first year I just wanted to be able to make a whole year out here, and then the second year was I need to network. Now, granted, I did some networking too in the first year, but I really wanted to make some connections out here, and that's what I did. And by the third year, I got my own apartment. You know, I've been doing all right and stuff. So, but yeah, music is all I do. I do a lot of gigs. I do a lot of solo gigs where I sing and I play sax to background tracks. I do that for parties, weddings, restaurants, clubs, don't matter. And then I DJ a little bit too, not like full on like, you know, old school DJing where you're scratching and all that, but I still do more than the average DJ. Because a lot of times when I DJ, I'm mixing tracks that I have to sing to as well. So that's kind of like one of the gimmicks to why people hire me, is because not only am I DJing, but I'm also singing, or I'm playing sax, and I MC real well. And but there's nothing like playing with the band. You know what I mean? Vocally, it's nice for me to work on backing tracks because I get to learn new songs quicker. You know, there's no rehearsal time. I just learn it while I'm driving to the gig, and then I try it. You know, I might save it when there's less people in the room or something, but once I do it once or twice, I know the song. You know, and so after that, it's just because you got, you know, we don't if you're a musician and you've been playing a long time, and you've been practicing a long time, you've been working at it. If you want to be professional, you got to work at it. You have to practice. You got to, you know, you got to fight through the sour notes. You got to fight through the strain. You got to fight through your, you know, if you're a guitar player, you got to get the calluses. Every instrument has its own callus. You know what I mean? But there's, would I trade anything, you know, and go back and say, you know, if I can go back and make a bunch of money doing electronics, would I do it? And I'm like, heck no, not at all. Because, you know, my day job is fun and entertaining, and I get to hang out with my friends, and we make money doing it. So, you know, the only downside right now is having to set up and tear down our own PA system. But luckily, this ain't the 70s and the 80s where the speakers were gigantic cabinets and 500 pounds. So, you know.
So what do you look for in a drummer?
Drum machines are great. No, I'm just kidding. I need a drummer who knows how to be a dynamic musician himself. A lot of guys just play in the pocket, and that's all they do. A lot of guys are loud and crazy, and that's all they do. You know, I need a guy who knows how to stay in the pocket, and what by that means, keep that steady beat. You're the timekeeper. You know what I mean? If you look at a clock, the clock does not stop. It doesn't slow down ticking. It doesn't speed up. It stays the same. Now, not to say that that's boring, but a drummer has got to keep that time specific. A good drummer, like the one holding the camera, can keep the time, but also be a showman as well. You know what I mean? Know how to entertain the crowd with his movements, facial movements, things you might say, yell out. I used to play with this drummer. His name was George Lamarzian out in Chicago. He was a comedian. I mean, he actually was a comic. You know, he learned with some of the old greats from Saturday Night Live and everything. But when he was playing, he was riling up the crowd as we're playing. There's some songs that I still listen to today that when it comes to a certain spot, I'm like, oh yeah, that's where he would say something. You know, he would fill with his voice, and other people just wouldn't do. You know what I mean? So a musician, a drummer is a musician at first. It's not just a drummer. You know, a saxophone player is a musician first, not just a saxophone player. If you're not thinking about the music, then you're not thinking correctly. Plain and simple. Because there's no band is all about one person. You know what I mean? I mean, look at like Bruno Mars. If the band stops playing and all you have is Bruno Mars singing, it's not gonna be the same. If Bruno Mars doesn't sing and the band plays the music, then all you have is a backing track. You know what I'm saying? So you need the keyboardist, you need the drummer, you need the bass. Everybody's instrumental, extremely important to make music. You know what I mean? Like in Drumline movies, and one band, one sound, and that's true. Every band has to look at it that way. They have to be playing to make the song go. When you're in a club and people are dancing, you know, you got to think about what they're doing. They're out enjoying themselves, and you're making that happen. So you don't want to, if they're dancing and having a good time, you don't want to be doing solos every 5 seconds where the band stops and lets just the guy play by himself. You got to keep the groove. You got to keep playing. So maybe sometimes doing dance music doesn't allow a musician to be to expand his solos very well. Maybe he's got to stay more structured, but it's about the music. It's not about him soloing. You know what I mean? If you're using good musicians, we all know you can solo. Yeah. Good musicians can solo. That's just a fact. You know, so but it's more about the music. I know tons of bass players that can all day long, but when it comes to playing a song, they get lost. You know, they're so impatient. They want to start filling and they want to start doing this, and I'm like, you know, the bass and the drums are the two most important parts of the band. They carry the whole music. They're the bottom end. They're the drive. They're the time and everything. So if they're off and they're going in their own direction, then you know the whole thing is shot. So music can make your life awesome, but there's people in the music scene that can really destroy it. So you don't want to go that way. There's so much to enjoy if you become a musician and you're a quality musician. If you're a quality musician and you're a decent person, people are going to want to work with you. If you're a quality musician and you're a jerk, people won't want to work with you anymore. I mean, that's just the way it is now. There's too many great musicians out there for people to have to deal with a jerk. Somebody who thinks he's the hottest thing in the world and thinks, you know, he doesn't have to show up on time. Nah. I've fired many guys without ever having to fire a person. I just don't call them back. You know what I mean? I got plenty of guys that can light up a stage and show up on time. Why wouldn't I call that person? You know? So yeah, because you know, that's huge. People don't think about that stuff. They just think, oh yeah, I'm the baddest sax player in the world or whatever. And first of all, you ain't. I don't care who you are, you're not. There's a video of Dave Kaz, a friend of mine, also a great killer saxophone player. He was in Japan, right? Or maybe it was China. I think it was China. And he was he showed a quick video clip of 1,000 kids playing saxophone in one area. You know how like they show people in China and Japan and stuff, they all work out together and they all like these huge gigantic groups. There was this huge group of like 1,000 kids playing saxophone and took a video of it. I'm like, there's always gonna be somebody out there who can outplay you or whatever, but it's not about just your musical technique. It's about who you are, what you bring to the music yourself. Because I've seen videos where they hooked up a robot to a saxophone and it played giant steps, note for note, perfectly. But who wants to see that? I'd rather see Coltrane play it live. I mean, I wish I could have, than a robot. Not that the robot was bad. He just didn't have any tone.
Alright, thank you guys.
Oh yeah, we're in my garage.
We're in this garage now.
We made it home safely. That's another thing. After the gig, get home safely.
Peace for Drum for Success.
Drumsforsuccess.com. Wait, not yet.
Yes, it's extraordinaire.
Oh, #drumsforsuccess.com.